Hello and welcome there to another episode of the Cliff Notes podcast, where we ask a leader and find their way. Today I've been joined by Kevin Snook, CEO of Saxagon and LUCIDi4, best-selling author of Make It Right. How are you doing today, Kevin?
Very well, thank you, Tristan. It's good to be on here.
So you cut your teeth and got started at P&G. Was that your introduction to this industrial space, process improvement?
Oh, it's interesting. Right at the beginning, I needed to get into university, and in order to get into university, I needed to have a scholarship or a sponsorship to be able to pay for my fees there. And so I jumped in to look at what could I do at university that I'd actually be paid for, and I found a chemical engineering sponsorship with British Gas. And so that was a long time ago, but British Gas paid me through university, and I worked for them during the summers. And then when I finished university, I was allowed to go look for other roles as well. And I went straight from university into P&G. And then when I got into P&G, it was really around, do you want to continue going down an engineering path, or is there something else that's more interesting? And I gradually found, or over the first couple of years, I found out that the area I was most interested in was people and the management route, and I was allowed to explore that.
So this is the route that took you to migrating to the other side of the world, or have you got other sort of connections that pulled you in that direction?
That's right. So I was in P&G for 7 years in Manchester, and we were making everything from Fairy Liquid and then Lenore fabric conditioner, and then I moved into baby diapers and Pampers baby diapers, and having run part of the operation there, the company asked me if I would go over to Asia, where I am now, and look after the manufacturing technology side in China, Thailand, and the Philippines. And so I had a chance to come over to Asia 24 years ago, and I've been here ever since.
That's great. That's an interesting story. You can't quite imagine that at the beginning of your university career.
No, I actually started off. I came for a 2-year assignment, right? And it was fantastic, and I just loved Asia at that point. That was 1996, and at that time, Asia was just growing as a manufacturing center, and China was really just starting to open up, and the other parts, Southeast Asia, was starting to grow. And so it was a really dynamic environment. And after I'd been here for 2 years, I kind of fell in love with the whole dynamism of Asia. And then after 10 years here with P&G, so it was a total of 17 years with P&G, there was an option to either move to Europe or to the US with P&G, or to stay in Asia. And that was what I chose at that time, to do my own thing.
That's a good step and a good career. And the space of being able to take that opportunity, because it must have been the sort of the right sort of growth time. You hit a good opportunity to see the world, but to sort of open up and be more sort of distributed, and different countries helping each other out with different steps of the process. I mean, how have you seen that then, even this year with industry having to open and close with the pandemic? Has that still been a process that's still sort of considered accelerated growth, or there's been plenty of changes still?
Well, one of the challenges in manufacturing is company to company, people don't seem to share very many best practices. And so quite often within a company, you have an opportunity to work with different countries and different parts, different sectors of the business. But actually, company to company, people are quite proprietary about their information. But I had the opportunity to work now in about 30 different countries, and with about 200 different manufacturers. And so what I've had the opportunity to do is look around all of those different manufacturers and the different companies, cultures, the country cultures, and try to pick out which are the best of each of them. And what's happened over the last sort of 10 months since we've been in more of a lockdown situation from country to country is just this digital revolution, just like we're doing now, has really kicked into to another level. And what I'm finding is that where we couldn't do the feet on the floor thing anymore, which is kind of a paradigm in manufacturing. Like you have to be there to feel the factory and to see the people face to face to really know what's going on. We've managed to shift that paradigm a little bit, and with this kind of technology, with video technology, with being able to get good video feeds from production lines, and then with things like real-time data systems where the data can transfer from one production line to a completely different country in real time, I think you can get a really good feeling for what's going on around the world, even without moving. And so what I'm seeing is that there more companies and more cross-country companies are using that to be able to continue moving forward.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And are you seeing also then the innovation and also shifting and more newer products and newer ideas coming out of your sector and being sold back the other way rather than just being part of the supply chain and sending things round in a circle?
Yeah, and I think certainly from a digital point of view, the more we can digitalize everything, the more there is the opportunity to be able to share more freely across country borders without this, the long supply chains that we're used to in, for example, the FMCG businesses. But so innovation is certainly happening in the digital space, and things are ramping up very fast there. A real example is that most of my client base previously, prior to COVID, was, for example, South Korea, China, Malaysia, Indonesia, and London, right? So I was working across those 5 countries just as all the restrictions came in. Now, since the restrictions have come in, I've picked up a couple of new clients in the US. Now, that would have been almost impossible for me before with the old paradigm that I would have had to jump on a plane, go over all those different time zones and go spend time with people in their factory. But now people are becoming more comfortable with being able to communicate through this kind of system and that you can still add a huge amount of value, that I'm now open to working with companies that are absolutely on the other side of the world, which just wouldn't have been open to me before.
Sponsorship of this podcast has been brought to you by Holding Bay, the digital web agency. Holding Bay specialises in working with B2B companies, like manufacturers, to build better solutions and drive better sales funnels. So if you would like to build a web application or improve your branding and sales funnel, get in contact today. holdingbay.co.uk or call us on 01273 044 019.
I think there's the opportunity not only for consultants like I am, but even within a company where you've got factories in different countries, bringing more of this sort of technology into your business and sharing best practices within your own factories, I think is so much more open now.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, realistically, a video call is not so much different from picking up the phone. I mean, do you feel that it's not really a technological change? Maybe it's as much as a people change or a just acceptance change that's changed this year to make people more welcoming to this new way of communicating?
Yeah, I think certainly this year that's true. I think if you looked back 15 years ago, the difficulty that I was having trying to communicate, even when I was a regional leader for P&G, trying to communicate across different countries, especially if you were working with countries like India and Japan on the same call, and you had to try to connect somehow through Skype and hope that everyone was getting a good signal. That was really quite a challenge. Now, these days, the technology has got so much better. But you're right, there's a paradigm shift in the way that people realize that we have to start communicating. And even, people living in the same city can't get together now and go to the same factory to work. A lot of those people are working from home and having to get used to video technology. So I've been saying for a long time that I want CEOs, global CEOs, to be using their mobile phone to shoot 30-second videos and send them out to people as recognition that they know what's going on around the world, and call outs for people as being a great way to send a message. Everybody in every factory these days has a mobile phone. And so there's no reason why the CEO can't communicate with everybody every day through a video message. But I'm still finding a resistance to that because, certain people don't like the way they look or sound on video, or they're uncomfortable about it, or they have to shoot the video 15 times before they're happy that they've got the message right. And what I've tried to encourage people is the way you are on video is the way you really are anyway. You already look like that, right? You already sound like that. Other people don't notice it as much as you do. So I really want people to be able to use that technology and start getting the message out there without being so self-conscious about it.
Mm-hmm. In a sense of people don't like looking in the mirror. I mean, just our bodies and our personalities trained to reject something that looks too much like us, but we want to find something that mimics us. And it's just scary to see yourself back.
Yeah, it's so funny that people feel more comfortable seeing themselves as an avatar, right? It's like, oh, you want to be a cartoon figure, or do you want to be the real you? And the real you is what people see every day. They see you with your hair blown all over the place, and when you're sweating, and you don't have to put your makeup on to go on a Zoom call. That's the way people see you normally, and so I think that's going to change. That's rapidly going to change as people realize that this is a new way of doing work.
My friend's company did a 3D software training for language training for dangerous environments. So they were using it for oil rigs. So they were training people from all different countries and backgrounds to learn English, but in a disaster situation. So maybe a pump blew, or there was a fire or something. And that extra level of stress brings difficulty to people remembering to speak in other languages to communicate, even though it might not be English they need to speak at the time, but they need to be able to communicate and they need to know those situations. But there was those sort of opportune moments where people would turn up with their own avatars in these 3D spaces. So you still had to learn to teach a class when maybe everyone didn't look exactly human, or the right color, or the right shape, or the right thing that you would normally expect. So becoming more accepting.
Yeah, with our mobile technology now, we're all getting used to avatars and things, and it's not quite so strange. But that idea around translating. I've worked in Asia now for 24 years, and a lot of my work is done in second language, so I'll have a translator or somebody with me in different countries. But frankly, some of the biggest challenges I've had, especially when I was working with Procter & Gamble, you may have like one person on the phone from America, one from Europe, and one from Japan, and all across different time zones and things, and just translating from English to English was what I spent a lot of my time doing. So the American would be saying something about hitting it out of the ballpark, and how we have to run and get to third base. And then I'm like, whoa, wait, you're talking here to people who have never played baseball or have never, and we had to start talking about, well, what is the person in America actually saying? And then what is the person in Japan actually meaning when they're responding? And those different cultures, I think now we're getting so much more culturally aware because we have to. And that's where working with this kind of technology, it helps you, especially if you can see faces and you can see the interactions through good video technology rather than just using like a phone call.
Indeed. I mean, that's the popularity of things like emojis and gestures and things. It brings back that so much of communication has voice, has actions and expressions and emotions that go with it too. I mean, is this where you get into working with manufacturing leaders and teams to do process improvement on something like this, or maybe there are more specific hands-on areas?
Yeah, there's different. My work's changed quite a lot over the last 10 or so years that we've been running Saxagon. And it started off really with process improvement, which was, basically going in and looking at areas where the production lines weren't working very well, or the factory wasn't functioning as efficiently as it could be, and then helping people fix the equipment. And then what I quickly realized after that was that all of the equipment problems come from people. And then so what we really want to be doing is working on the people and the behaviors and the approaches to working between the people and the equipment. And then as I started working on how to help the production teams work more effectively with the equipment, we started seeing that there was a lot of barriers between the communication on the production floor and different levels in the organization. And so there was this communication gap. And gradually I've transitioned to working more with the leadership teams to be able to close that communication gap with the frontline employees so that everything flows more effectively, so that everything's more aligned. What I've found is that as we open up the communication channels and the frontline employees feel more comfortable saying what they need, and the leadership team spends more time helping the frontline employees to do their job more effectively, then the productivity and profitability just exponentially increase. And so I've spent more and more of my time.
No, that makes sense. And are there particular areas that you try and focus on with this? I mean, do you have a process or a way of approaching?
Yeah, so I have what I call the ALIGN process, and that's 5 letters, ALIGN. And the idea is getting this very clear alignment between the compelling business direction, which is where the leadership want the company to go, and then what each stage of the organization is doing as we get aligned with that goal. And the align process, A is aim from the heart, which is about having a very clear and compelling business direction. L is lead with the front line, and that means as you put action plans together, the team members who actually do the work on the front line are involved in the action planning process so that they take more accountability and ownership for the plans. The I in the align process is inspire with information. And what that really means is that we need to have really good metrics to follow as we go along this path. The purpose around inspiring with information is that you can use data in 2 ways. You can either use it to beat people up, or you can use it to motivate them. And what we want to be doing is using that data in the right way to show people what the opportunity is. So that's ALI. And then the G is what I call the second most important factor for the leadership, which is giving help and support. And that means that as the frontline employees move towards this compelling business direction, they're going to hit certain barriers that they can't solve themselves, even with coaching and training. They're going to need help from outside in the organization somewhere. And the job of the leader is to help them get that support that they need. And then the N is nurture with feedback and recognition. And this is all about whenever we're all going on a journey together, we need to feel like we're making good progress, not only for the business, but also in our personal life as well. So how do we feel well recognized with the right level of feedback as we move through this process? So that's the ALIGN kind of process that I follow with organizations.
Mm-hmm. I like that they're not just single words. They're more of a feeling and a direction to them.
Oh, thank you. And a big part of that for me is it has to be a feeling thing. You know, some people say aim from the heart. You know, Kevin, we're in manufacturing. Isn't this a bit soft or a bit woolly? You know, aren't we supposed to be like getting results and you know, getting stuff made? And what I've found is that if you as a leader are not aiming from the heart, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, and if you don't feel inspired getting up in the morning every day to do this with your business, then there's no way you can inspire the people that work with you. And so you have to be inspired yourself in order to be inspiring. And so this aiming from the heart means digging deep into finding why are you doing what you're doing every day? And then how do you share that passion and that purpose with the people that are working with you so that they feel inspired by it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, speaking for myself and then out into working with teams is people that feel positive and feel rewarded in that process adds at least 10% to their day if they're in a positive mindset.
But we never make good decisions either. We never make good decisions when we're in a bad space, right? You know that. If you've had a bad day and if you're feeling one of these negative feelings, right, anger or frustration or jealousy or comparison, you know, when you've got those things, you can't even taste the food that you're eating, right? Everything shuts down. All your smart functions shut down when you feel one of those negative emotions. The more we can help people feel great about their work and look forward to what they're doing and feel like they've got a say in the business, the better decisions they make. And so it's really around the role of the leader is to build that environment so that people can be making great decisions.
Mm-hmm. So is what you're saying here that sort of resist dividing the front line from the bottom line in the business and get them working together?
Well, they do work together. So every time I've seen the front line get engaged with the work, the profits get better. I'll give you a great example. I was working with a company in South Korea, and they'd brought me in to help with a production line that wasn't running very well. And for the first probably about 6 weeks, we weren't getting great results. And then we had this tracking software in place, and I could see exactly what was happening every minute of the day. And then I was sitting in Bangkok on a Sunday, And I was just watching what was happening on these results. And I'd noticed that the night before, all of a sudden, at about 5 o'clock in the evening on a Saturday evening, the results suddenly took a change, right? I can see the variability, and the variability started getting less. And I was able to go there the following week. So it was a week later that I actually went back to South Korea, and I had a conversation. I said to the team, and that week it had run beautifully. I said, look, I noticed that something had changed. What happened last weekend? And they said, oh, nothing. I'm like, no, I can tell, right? I've got all the data in front of me. Something definitely happened. And it was half an hour before they said to me, we just decided to get together as a group of 3 and make this work. And the group of 3 were the 3 line shift operators. So the frontline workers that actually did all the hard work on morning, afternoon, and night shift. And what they'd done is they kind of said, you know what, Kevin's not going away. This is going to be the new way we do our work. Why don't we just give it a real go? And immediately they said that, the results started getting better. And I'm talking about significant improvements that I could see, sitting over in Bangkok. Over the next year, those guys delivered $1 million worth of savings from that production line. Now, that's $1 million that, had they not decided to give it their all and really get involved, that company would never have seen. So there's no doubt in my mind that it's the frontline workers who make the decisions every minute of the day anyway, that when they get fully engaged, that's when profitability kicks in.
No, that's a good story, good actionable case. And I mean, bringing that back into that sort of the data part, and there's another area that you focus in on with sort of process improvement and data for in another one of your businesses for managing process control and improvement of production for LUCIDi4. Could you give us a bit more on that and how that connects to these?
Yeah, thank you. With that, the reason that we developed that company was that I was going in to help companies, and what was happening is that I wasn't able to demonstrate the significant improvements that we were making. And the reason for that was that there was such a delay in getting the data from the production lines themselves back without it being manipulated. Quite often what happens in production environments is people have they have a monitor on the production line, and then they're writing down numbers from the monitor every day, and then they're putting them into an Excel sheet, and then they're putting them into a graph, and then, at the end of the week, they're presenting them in a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting and trying to decide what to do with that data to get better. And it was just incredibly frustrating. And we said that in order to make good decisions, you need to have great data. In order to make rapid decisions, you need to have real-time data. And that's what we wanted to make sure we had. And so a colleague of mine that I did my MBA with, he's got an IT background from the Olympic Games and sort of data crunching background. And so we got together and we said, how do we get this data immediately from the production lines and then do all the analytics that we need to do on it, immediately in real time, and then get it back to people's mobile devices again in real time or to screens on the production line, that has cleaned up all the data and told them exactly what the next step is in order to be able to get a better result. And so LUCIDi4, which is the company, we developed from that. And over the last 6 or 7 years, we've been using that as we go into different companies, but also selling it to other companies in order to help them make better decisions in real time.
Mm-hmm. And it sort of nicely brings back, was this bringing on a lot of your work in the sort of health and wellness products at P&G back into that experience in the factory and into production, then back in this sort of software and process improvement side?
Yeah, well, data, the data is so important for making improvements, but, for targeting and making the right improvement. But then it's also really important for showing there's a return on investment in anything that you do. And a lot of the times the barrier for companies doing something new and trying something new is that they can't see what's the return on investment going to be. Let me give you an example. If one of the big companies wants to, if you say, I want to put a new ERP system in or a new MRP system in, and we call up one of the big companies to come and put that system in, they'll charge you $1 million, and after you've done it and you've done all the manipulation on the installation and everything, then you're trying to figure out, was this really a good thing or not? And half of the people have gone back to using Excel spreadsheets again because they couldn't quite follow the right process. And I've been through that situation with a number of companies, and it's really difficult. What I would much rather do, and this is like the whole move to Industry 4.0 and smart factories, etc., I'd much rather start on a very small kind of pilot project, prove that there's a return on investment for whatever you do there, and then gradually roll that out and use the money, the return that has come in from the pilot project to then do another small part of the business and then another small part of the business. Now, in that way, it goes a little bit slower than just dumping in a whole new system. But what it also does is it builds the team's confidence with the system and capability with the system as you go ahead. And so you'll get much more ownership of the new technology when you do it that way. But also the bigger benefit is that you start to see where you're getting a return on investment and you can put the profits back into, expanding the system.
Mm-hmm. With a technical system, in a sense, the only physical thing it's adding is data, and then the training and the use of it. Where is the return on the investment, or what are you seeing? Is this stuff actionable?
I look for really hard return on investment, right? And so, for example, with the LUCIDi4 system, if we put that on a production line, what we're looking for is a direct correlation in reduction of scrap, for example. So, I'm very familiar with, from my Pampers background, I'm very familiar and working in the hygiene industry with things like baby diapers. If you put the system on a baby diaper line, which is typically running at 2.5% to 3% scrap, which means reject product, what you want to be able to do is see that the direct correlation from the day that system got put in to a significant reduction in the scrap level. And that is real money that goes to the bottom line, right? Every scrap pad that you make or every scrap bottle that you make of something is a bottle you can't sell. And you have to sell 10 bottles at a 10% margin to be able to get that money back, right? So if you can save one scrap bottle and stop it being scrap and sell it instead, there's an immediate return on investment. And you want to be able to see that and correlate to that to installing the system.
Yeah, I get you. Because presumably the product in health that's coming off a line isn't like a sort of machine parts or something that can be reworked and put back in. You can't fix a diaper or a bottle that's being misfilled. It is scrap.
That is very true. But and also in the rework of a machine part, there's incredible cost in that. Right? If you can get a standard process that's really well set up and things come out right first time, then that's a very efficient process. You can fine tune that and make that incredibly efficient. But if you've got a certain number of defects, every time you bring that defect in, you're bringing in a disruption to your natural process. So it's not only the time and energy that it takes to rework that one piece, but it's the disruption that you make to the ongoing process as you're doing that. You're taking up more people time, more machine time, et cetera, and disrupting the process. So the key to all of this is reducing variability, getting consistency, and then ramping up the speed after you've got a very consistent process.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's an important process, and process improvement isn't a thing that just rolls in and suddenly is fixed. So it is an ongoing game. Just to then round out our interview today and get onto some more sort of forward-looking or a challenging question. Where are you seeing sort of challenges or the business and the sort of industrial space moving in the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
I think one of the biggest challenges at the moment is getting good people into manufacturing. I think that manufacturing is still seen in many regards as an old industry. A lot of manufacturing companies still seem to be stuck in the 1980s and 1990s and are really not ramping forward, and not only actually in their factories, but also with their marketing to new employees, to potential new employees. What I'd love to see is a real focus on how do we get a little bit more glamour into manufacturing so that the smartest kids are looking at manufacturing as an opportunity for the future, and really start to build the reputation of manufacturing moving into Industry 4.0 and smart factories and the technological revolution that's, the new technological revolution that's coming. I'd love to see that as more of a focus for the industries themselves, because the best people to promote a manufacturing company is a manufacturing company itself.
Yeah, I got you. And you see that as a worldwide problem. It's not the businesses that you work with in Asia and in Thailand and America or Europe. You still see that as an issue.
I do, and I think anybody who works in manufacturing will see that as well. And one of the things that I say within a company is if you look at your best employees within your company, are those best employees in your company, do they want their best friends and their family members to come and work in your company? And if the answer is like, oh, well, I'm not sure, right, then there's some space that we can improve. Because what I really want is the best employees to feel super proud of the way that they're working and they're taking the company forward, that they would love to have the best people that they know come and work with them. And to me, that's a really good sign of whether the culture is in good shape or not.
Yeah, I get you. And just the challenging superhero question for the end is: once you've become a Super Kevin, you're boxed in the corner and want to come out fighting, or maybe putting the cape on a business leader that you're working with. What would be the couple of things that you'd like to see them grab to come out fighting?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. So for me, what would I like to have a cape on for? I'd just like to get more awareness out there that manufacturing could be so much better. I said I've worked in 30 different countries, and in every different country I go to, people tell me, Kevin, manufacturing is hard. And then they'll say something like, especially here in Brazil, it's hard, or especially here in Japan, it's hard, or here in Indonesia, it's difficult. And I'd love people to see that, yes, manufacturing can be hard, but if we do it in a different way, it can be incredibly fulfilling. And there's some really good career paths and routes that you can follow as an individual through the manufacturing that plays to your strengths, that at the end of the day, you feel like you've had a great day at work and you're really looking forward to coming back to work the next day. That's what I would love to see for the manufacturing industry.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks for joining us today and enlightening us on more of these topics. If people want to learn more about you or the Align process, which is covered in your book,
I think the single point of contact is just LinkedIn. Kevin Snook on LinkedIn. You can search me out on there. The book is an Amazon bestseller, so you can find that on Amazon. But there's also a link to a free copy, a free PDF copy on my LinkedIn page. So if you go over to my LinkedIn, please just send me a message, connect, and we can start a conversation from there.
Great. No, that's great. Well, I wish you well and things improve for all of us around the world and things can get back and keep accelerating forward. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Tristan. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us today on the Cliff Notes podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with me or the guests, you can do so by visiting the website cliffnotespodcast.com, or we always like to hear from you on LinkedIn, Twitter or Facebook @CliffNotesPod. Thank you.